Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on psychic impressions and true life events that may be potentially frightening and or disturbing to some viewers. Any of the information that is shared in this production should not replace the advice of medical professionals and is intended for general purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Even though 2/3 of the American population believes in something paranormal and half of the nation has claimed to have had an unexplained encounter, the subject still remains widely misinformed, misunderstood, and somewhat taboo in the minds of many. In our work, we have found that there is a vast number of individuals and families that have experienced paranormal-related activity on some level, whether that be occasionally or on a more frequent basis. Sadly, many of those who have had these encounters find it very hard to admit to what they are hearing or seeing due to the fear of the potential persecution from society and or the possibility of dealing with even more frightening encounters. It could be your neighbor, co-worker, or even a family member. With little or no options for help and assistance, many of these victims independently search for answers that seemingly lead to more questions, and in turn often suffer in silence. One of the main purposes of the Lights at Midnight podcast is to raise awareness of these issues by giving a voice to those who have chosen to remain voiceless for understandable reasons, letting them know they are not alone. We have made it our mission to help those who seek to identify their own supernatural experiences by using our psychic abilities and the knowledge that we have gained along the way from our own paranormal encounters, as well as sharing the stories of others in this season. In most cases, there is an initial cause that sparks these unexplained events. In our work, we call this the origin. We felt it would be important to start at the beginning, to set a foundation for our listeners, whether that be for entertainment or informational purposes. So without further ado, Lights at Midnight podcast proudly presents to you Season 1, Origins.
Okay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our brand new podcast, where the name of this recording is Bitch Ass Recording.
Is it because you didn't know what to name it, or is it because you were so friggin' fed up? You were like, fuck up. This. Yeah.
Yeah, I named it Bitch Ass Recording because I didn't figure it was going to work, but I was wrong. Yeah.
Well, did you hear that motorcycle in the background?
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry. I don't know what else to do about it.
How are we going to edit that out?
I have no idea. YOLO. It was a ghost.
Just kidding. We all know we don't live just once.
Exactly.
JK. Just kidding. In today's show, we're going to talk about who the fuck we are. And our past lives before we do what we do now. And we're just going to give y'all a little bit of what it is we do, like our first paranormal experience, how did we know we were psychic, and our scariest experiences and why we do what we do now, spiritually.
I'm sorry.
Like, delete all this shit.
I know. I don't know why I started laughing.
You're empathic, and the things I've done with my life in the last 15 minutes have come to you.
Oh, shit. Because you hit the fucking... Oh, no.
Don't ask questions.
That's like if that's like if you get drunk, I get drunk.
You will say, let's say I'm drunk.
Okay, well, you're happy. You're in your happy place.
Yeah. I have nerves, damn it. Oh my god. No, look, you did it too. You were so empathic.
I tried so hard not to.
Oh god.
Bloopers? Though?
Yep. I think you should start first.
Okay. Fuck. Okay. It's not gonna go. Okay. All right. So, hi guys. Welcome to Lights at Midnight podcast. I'm Emily, and this is
Chasity, aka Luna Beams.
yes. And today we are going to be discussing quite a few things here about how we got started in some ways. Basically, about ourselves before we realized we were psychic mediums, and we will be talking about our paranormal experiences and some defining moments that told us that we had abilities and some of our scarier experiences. Mwahaha. Yes.
And then pretty much why we do what we do and now. So.
All right.
Okay.
Don't start laughing because I'll start laughing.
I'm trying not to.
Okay.
Topic number 1.
Who are you, Chasity?
Who am I?
Who are you,
Oh, you're
Chasity?
going first.
I'm going first?
Okay, fine. So, my name is Chasity. If we're going back to the backstory, I've lived in the same place most of my life and dealt with the same people. Childhood was pretty normal when it come to not paranormal, except for when I decided to play with a Ouija board like a dummy. But yeah, so before all that and after that, I was pretty normal. I went to high school, went to college, got married, had kids. My past life was basically a bartender. Never used my college degree, but for about 6 months, it was pretty useless. And an event planner. So I had 10 years in that. And I'd always had something a little bit different kind of about me. And I always thought I was weird because I'd have flashes of visions or when I would finish people's sentences. And had a lot of crazy stuff happen, though, in my teenage years. But as far as who I am and what I used to do, I guess you could say pre-pandemic, that was about it. And I had kind of a cookie cutter life.
Interesting.
Yes. Then shit hit the fan.
Yeah. Blame it on the Rona.
Yep. Everything went crazy. And one interesting thing about that is in 2020, there was a huge astrological shift that changed everybody's pattern. Like the day they dropped the news about COVID on the news, that was the same day of this great astrological shift. Astrologers knew it was going to be so bad that they took literally, like, the top astrologers in the United States took a cruise just to talk about what was going to happen. They couldn't tell you what was going to happen, but they knew something big was going to happen. Now, that's before, I knew anything about all this, but interesting fact.
Ooh, fascinating.
Yep. I feel a lot of people, life's changed after that in one way or another, especially spiritually, though.
Yeah, I had a lot of attacks in 2020.
Yeah, I did too. I was literally fighting things off of me and my family in 2020. And that's why I became who I was. I wanted to make sure my family was protected because I'd always dealt with stuff like that, but I never knew exactly what to do. And then I found some cool people and some cool information.
Hi. Just kidding.
Yep. Definitely one of them. Well, Emily, who are you and what do you do?
Hi. So, as you already know, my name is Emily. I have a degree in sociology of social deviance and behavior, which focuses on the criminal aspects of people's behaviors and the motivations behind these behaviors, with a lot of focus in psychology, such as abnormal. Oh, wow, fuck that up already. Such as
now you know why I wing it.
Yeah, abnormalities in brain function, mental illness, and environmental variables. My main goal was to become a criminal profiler. Criminal profiler. However, due to the job market, I ended up in retail and didn't use my degree at all.
That's what
At
we have in
all.
common.
Hmm.
We have that in common.
And then on the side, I had started an art business called Lido Fine Art, which then morphed over time into Lido Fine Art, the fine art medium. And the fine art medium, in short, once I decided to start a paranormal business. So there was a lot of stuff.
Hells, yeah.
Hells
I did a lot
yeah.
of stuff myself. Yeah, I could go through all of it, but yeah, it's literally, I did what I was supposed to do. I just, graduated college, had kids, or
Mm-hmm.
got married, had kids. I did the whole the American dream stuff. Well, that all got burnt to the ground. So that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, though. We always transform.
That's right.
It's a part of life.
Mm-hmm. So, Chastity, what was, or like, what is the first paranormal experience that you remember?
So it kind of is a two-parter. So I'm going to say like the first couple because it was over a few years. The first paranormal experience was when my grandfather passed, or my great grandfather passed away. He actually had like a 1970s Ouija board, and it come to my mom and dad's house, and it was there, and I was 12 years old, and I was with my friend Jessica, and Jessica was like a church going family. Her whole family was church going, and she was like, this stuff really works, and I called her bullshit on it. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It does not work. Well, we took it out and we tried it out, and it worked on the first time. So we did that like 3 or 4 times. We'd ask questions that it had no way of knowing the answers to, and it would tell us things like our social security number. I wasn't moving it. Jessica didn't know the social security number. Things like our mom's middle name. Well, she didn't know my mom's middle name, and I wasn't moving the planchette. And let's see. Oh, the last time we ever used it, we asked what his name was, and it told us it was Jesus. So, yeah. So we were like 13, 12, 13, freaked us out. And yeah, we were done. After that, we knew something was really wrong. And yeah, I didn't really have any paranormal experiences outside of that, except things in my life started getting really bad. Parents fighting all the time, and just having a lot of issues at home and with my own happiness. Always upset, contemplated things that I probably shouldn't have, very just depressed. And I guess that moves into when I met my ex-husband. We went up to his house with a few of my friends, including Jessica and another friend, Kelly, and we decided to go to Payne Road, where he lives. There's a road called Payne Road. There was some murders out there, and they're like, yeah, if you stop your car on the bridge, it gets pushed off and all that. Well, we rode up and down the road doing teenage stuff. We got back to his house, and then when we went to go leave, all three of us were dead quiet. And it was because all three of us felt like something was following us, almost like it was on the back of the car. And I would say this was the defining, most scariest moment, honestly, because that's when things changed forever for me. And we all felt that way. We didn't even say anything to each other. We just knew. About 20 minutes into the drive is when we finally all figured out that we were having something follow us. And that feeling did not stop until we got home, which was 35 minutes away. We all felt like it was something black, and it was in a long robe, or like a kind of like those things you see on Harry Potter. What are they called? The ones that fly
Oh, the
around?
Death Eaters, because I can see it. I literally see it right now. Like how the
Yeah.
tattered cloak is like waving in the wind, kind of, but
Hmm.
it's like in a mist kind of form, and it kind of like fades into the air a bit.
Yeah, it was so bad. And this was, I was 16 years old. And yeah, this thing, basically what I saw in my mind then before I ever knew anything, looked pretty much just like that. It was like holding on to the back of the car. Did not let us go until we got back into another whole county. Like we were a whole county away. It was
Wow.
crazy. And we went inside and never spoke of it again. So that was like my first like paranormal experiences and how it ties into my personal story.
Mm-hmm. Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, but are you sure it
You're
was
fine.
Jesus and not Jesus?
Right. I have thought that. But yeah, considering everything that happened, I'm pretty sure it meant Jesus.
I know, I was kidding. I was like,
It
Jesus.
definitely wasn't Jesus. And if it was
Well,
Jesus, he
yeah.
fucked up by telling us his real name, because how was that going to go between two suburban white girls in the South? So I'm just saying, you're going to try to talk to
Mhm.
us? Yeah, that's not happening. But the interesting thing is like, being this girl, she's the only person that I'm still like close to from high school. Like I actually talk to on at least a weekly basis. We get our kids together. There's nobody else that happens to. And me and her actually explored our psychic abilities. It's literally just come back to me even after that, when we were around 16, 17 years old. But I'll save that for another day. But she's the only person I'm still close to.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
hmm
And what about you, Em? What was your first paranormal experience?
So recently, I actually had a memory resurface of a time when I was around the age of 7 or 8. I remember having a reoccurring nightmare over and over again where this thing pretended to be my mom and would start screaming things at me and chase me down.
Ew.
Um, yeah, it was freaking disgusting. So we would be sitting on the recliner with me and my mom's lap just to watch TV. Um, in some weird room. Like I don't know, I don't think it was in the house I just moved from. I think it was a house before, like before that house. But I had recently or accidentally, when I was in the dream, right? I had accidentally stabbed my fingers on a tiny decorational cactus, which is random. It's weird
Wow.
because I don't even think my mom owned any any decorational cactuses, but they were like alive, right? And so I
Yeah.
remember feeling it in the dream and it hurt. Like it literally felt like I stabbed myself with all the little needles with the cactus
That's like
and
a Sleeping Beauty on crack episode right there. Gee.
in the hood.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those needles got stuck in my fingers and I felt it. And, because when I was younger, I was always afraid of getting in trouble and getting yelled at by my parents. So, of course, I pretended nothing happened and just, went back sitting and watching TV with my mom and trying to pull the things out of my fingers.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, as we're watching TV, she starts saying these really mean things like how I'm awful, how she doesn't love me, and how she doesn't want me, which is like really terrifying as like a 7 or 8 year old. So, as she's saying these things, her face starts morphing into something green and grotesque, really
Ew.
creepy. And it kind of reminds me of, is it the Riddler? Is he the green looking
I'm
guy?
pretty sure, but I never watched like all of the Batman, or never was into the comics. So we're just going to say yes.
Yes. Well, I didn't either. So that's what's weird, but it just reminded me of that.
Leave
But
us a comment
so,
down below if you know for sure.
yeah, is it the Riddler? So I was like 7. So yeah, it terrified me. And of course, I tried running away, but the thing would chase me. And it's like green, ugly ass form that looks like my mom, but it's not. And and I would be chased until I would wake up. And this dream happened like 5 different times. So it would happen one day, and then a week later, and then maybe a month later, then maybe 2 months or 3 months later, and then some other time after that. And it was the same dream.
Mm.
So I know now that was an astral attack, and it was one of my very first ones. And I did tell my mom about it, and she pretty much said not to eat snacks too late before going to bed. And I was just like, okay, but I didn't. But, parents sometimes don't believe you because you're a kid. And
Yeah.
so when it happened again, I just didn't say anything out of fear of getting yelled at.
Yeah,
But
that's sad.
yeah, a more prominent experience I had. I'm about the same age, so maybe 8 or 9 this time. And I remember telling my mom, like one night, that the porcelain dolls that I had in my room, which I think they were gifted to me by my aunt and some family relatives along the lines, but some family relatives had gifted them to me, and my mom put them in my room and put them on high shelves. But so one morning when my mom came into my room to wake me up for school, she freaked out because all those dolls were turned around facing the walls. And mind you, you know, even if I stood on my bed, I could not reach it. I'm tiny. I'm still tiny. And back then I was even tinier. So there was no
Right.
way I could reach it. But my parents didn't believe me. They thought I somehow climbed up there and did it anyway.
Yeah, you scaled the wall like Spider-Man just to turn the dolls away from
I
you.
always wanted to be Spider Man, damn it.
Absolutely, you may have, but I'm not too sure about that because of all the events that's happened at your house since. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's nuts. That reminds me of my house too. But go ahead, finish your story.
No, that's it.
Oh well, perfect. Hey, so
Hey.
I will mention this about my home. So my home was never meant to be a home. My childhood home. It was meant to be a garage. And then sometime in the 40s, they built a house around it, like a cement garage. So part of my house was cement. I did not grow up rich. I grew up fairly not rich, but the house was definitely older. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, actually, her and her husband, and my dad and his sister lived there when they were little. Well, my house, before they lived there was a man that owned the house, and he drank himself to death in the kitchen there, which is very interesting because my mom struggled with that kind of stuff, throughout her life and most of my family. So it's almost very interesting when you think about it. It's almost like it come over from the past because she would see this man in this house, and she don't remember because she had a NED and she don't remember a whole lot since. I did see him one day when I woke up when I was 14. And there was a man standing across the room, and I had a day bed. And I woke up and opened my eyes, and there he was. He was outlined in white. I swear, I just remembered that. This happened in between the Ouija board and then the experience in the car. Totally forgot about that. But I am pushing 40, so forgive me and my old brain. But yeah, so the house, when my grandmother lived there, my grandmother, my dad's mom, she actually was practicing witchcraft, but not necessarily good witchcraft. She had a revelation because she did not like somebody so much that she willed a tree to fall on them. Well, so many months later, years later, she ended up deciding to go to church and getting saved. And she said the devil visited her in her bedroom that night. It was blacker than the black. There were no lights on. And it told her, the entity told her, "You belong to me. You were mine." And she replied to it, "I'm covered in the blood of Jesus Christ. You can't have me." And it disappeared. Well, guess whose room she was sleeping in when that happened? Mine.
Ooh.
Bingo. Yeah, and that wall she said he walked through was a cement wall, and like when I lived there, I was young, so I didn't know. There was like black specks all over it. And I'm like, "What's this?" Then I got old enough to realize it was black mold. So I'd have
Ooh.
to take Clorox and clean off the black mold through the wall, the cement wall to the outside that evidently, according to my grandmother, to her, the devil passed through and wanted her back. Truly, I think it was a demon, probably not the devil himself, but that's
Mhm.
just me. But that
Yeah.
reminded me about my house. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your house?
Oh, there's so many things with my house. I honestly don't know the history of it. I just know that like we moved there in 1998 and I think it was only there probably 95 or 96 and before then it was just farmland. And my house was like one of like two or three houses in that development. But a lot of shit went on in that house. Um yeah, a lot of paranormal activity that I didn't realize until later. But I remember having so many astral projection experiences there. Um
Yeah,
One movie that actually I think started it, which is very funny, but it was Kiki's Delivery Service,
I don't
right?
even know what that
I
is.
love that movie. You don't know what that is?
No, I've never heard of it. I guess we can talk about it later. But if anybody knows, I don't know.
It's a Ghibli film, right? So it's basically about this little girl who's a witch, right?
Okay.
But so she's flying. She does delivery services on her broom, Okay.
Right.
It's so adorable.
Kick
But
ass.
anyway, yeah, and that kind of started my astral projection experiences in my house. And I was probably 8 or 9 when that
That's
started
cool.
happening. But later, maybe towards 2017, is when, you know, some of the really negative stuff would pop in, such as like the spider entities. There was a demonic entity, succubus entity, and a whole host of shit. But yeah,
Wow.
that house, even now is still having issues. And because
Yeah.
I'm not there to cleanse it. And so the issues just get worse.
Yeah, and you've told me your family doesn't really
Nope,
agree with what you say, and we also spoke about how it's probably the land because your house was so
yeah,
new that it hasn't those types of areas haven't been underwater. A lot that land has seen a lot for over many 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 years, so there's no
yeah,
telling, but it's definitely something that me and you both discussed. We feel that was attached to the land. For my house, I think it was just the activity that happened in it and attached to people.
yeah,
So there's a big difference in like how we got affected. I'd always had been different when I was little. I was always more mature, always kept to myself. I was the only child, so I had a lot of time to think, and I never really realized some of those thoughts, like the thoughts and things I would know. I never realized that they could have been psychic abilities until I was older,
hmm,
which,
yeah. And I mean, I was the same way growing up. I played varsity sports and stuff, and even though I was on the team, I felt like the outcast, like
yeah,
for everything I did. I didn't have many friends, really. I didn't get along with a lot of people, and my dad's side is Catholic. My mom is a she just doesn't care about religion, so she don't identify as anything really. But
right.
my dad is more on the Catholic side, and he doesn't really talk about that stuff, and he doesn't agree with that stuff, especially when I was growing up. So when I was having these experiences, I couldn't tell them um, until recently, maybe 2017. I started talking to my mom more about it because the experiences had gotten so bad that it would be nighttime, and then all of a sudden I'd feel something in my room,
Yeah.
and it was so bad that like I couldn't sleep. I was terrified, and I'm like 20 some years old
Mm.
at that point, and
Yeah, I just
I'm
saw
freaking
something like
out.
it literally just triggered a vision in me. It's like you're laying in bed and maybe in like the left corner of your bedroom, or from the way
Hmm.
I'm seeing it, I see something just black just start from the floor and grow up the side
Yep.
the corner of the room. So it like manifested from the corner, and I'm saying it's manifested from the corner where those porcelain dolls used to be.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it, but I see it near the porcelain dolls, like they're on the opposite wall or something, or they were. They might not have been then because you were like 20, but I wouldn't throw any shade if they
Yeah.
were.
So like I had throughout the years my bedroom moved around in the house. So like I was in one room till I was like probably 20, and then I moved down to the basement and I was there for a few years, and
Oh,
that's where it got even worse. And then my parents moved me back up to my brother's old room to see if
right.
that would help, and it did not.
Yeah, I saw this, and I would assume from what I saw, could have been in your first room, but I might be
Yeah.
wrong. But that's
Yeah,
where I saw it. I
that
saw it.
the first room is where I had the porcelain dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
which you
I didn't
didn't
really get
know.
a reference to how old you were. But yeah, I see it. It's like I don't know why it's throwing off shades of blue too, because I'm getting like blue. I'm seeing a lot of blue for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's this because I see colors associated with entities as well to help me identify the emotional things they're attached to people.
Yeah.
So blue is for me like sadness, depression, just and it can be good, but it can be calming, but not when it's related to stuff like this.
Yeah. And so I was in that room from probably 6 or 7 years old till maybe 20, until I started college. Oh, till after college, maybe. So like 23. But
Right.
when I would see stuff in that room, I didn't see it as much as I did in the basement. I saw that black thing in the basement, but when I
Mm.
saw things in my first room, I would see it in my doorway. I always kept my door wide open because I always felt very like I felt trapped and I didn't like that. So I always had my door wide open. And it just reminded me I had a cat and she would just come into my room when I'm sleeping and attack my face for no reason. I just remembered that.
That's awful. I think
It
we've
was terrible.
I've had a cat do that shit too, and I'm gonna tell you what, I
Yeah.
love cats, but that's like one of the side effects of having a bad cat. They just want like, I
Hmm.
want to eat your face. They say, that if cats were bigger like lions, like they do think about eating you, but they know they can't, so they don't try.
The fuck?
Evidently that was a scientific study, but just
Yeah.
saying, I mean, I might be wrong, but yeah, she wanted to eat your face.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Nice.
frightening.
But yeah, so I always would have my door open and I would see things in the doorway and in the hallway. I would see shadows and stuff and faces.
Yeah.
I
Mm-mm.
would see a lot of faces in shadow in the doorway and in the hallway. And I
Right.
remember being so scared, so scared. And I thought, leaving my door open, like I had German Shepherd, like she was a big dog, she was a good dog, like she was very protective, and I always thought like if anything were there, she'd come and help me, but yeah, she did not. I felt
Right.
I felt very abandoned by my dog.
I would see stuff like that, like in the darkness that's darker than dark. I
Yeah.
don't recall seeing that in my childhood home, but I do recall seeing that in the first home that I had that was outside of living with my parents or my grandma. So
Hmm.
I can associate that experience with experiences I've had as well. And that started happening from like the age of 18 on up until I moved out of that house at like 23. So yeah, I can relate to that, just not in my childhood home, in the
Hmm.
crazy spooky house, the demon infested house I lived in or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah. But like so that dark shadow you saw, that's what I would see in in like the basement room down there. Like
okay,
at the peak of the bad stuff is when
that's
I would see
interesting.
that. Yeah. And I would see
It's
it in
almost
my
like it
mind's
would
eye.
engulf the whole room. The way it made
Uh-huh.
me feel, it literally started really, really small. And then it just almost like a Hollywood movie type scene where you see stuff start really small and then the shadow creeps up the wall and then its arms go up both sides of the ceilings and then like cover your bed.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what
And
I
it
made
was
me feel
always
like.
on the left too, is when I would see
Really.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it made me feel because you're my POV, like, because where I get visions of other people's experiences, I try to do it from that point of view. It's different from when I like remote view, I guess you could call it. But this is,
Hmm.
yeah, I saw that shit. What was blue down there? What would make the room blue? Anything, or
So
is that just the energy?
so I never saw anything blue down there. Like, but in my first room, if I saw anything, it was green. Like I
Was the
would
walls blue? Were there anything painted blue or significantly blue in that room?
Okay, so my bedroom was blue and then it
That's
was
probably
yeah, it was blue, but then my mom thought it would be a cool idea to paint my walls lime green.
well, that is kind of cute for the early 2000s, I guess.
Lime green with yellow trim.
Oh Lord.
Uh-huh.
That's anxiety inducing.
Uh-huh.
That's why I have a Twitch now. Okay. Oh man. Well, that pretty much covers our first couple paranormal experiences,
Hmm.
but I think
But
topic number 3, you got anything else you want to add to that though?
no, I was just gonna ask you what your defining moment of when you knew you had abilities
Oh
was.
yeah, that's what I was moving to. We're looking at cheat sheets. So
Hmm.
at least we're on the same page. So how like define an ability? I knew that I had gifts like early on in my I'd say teenage years, early 20s, but I never embraced it. I just knew that I could see and know things before everybody else. I've had dreams, prophetic dreams come true about certain things in my life. But the defining moment for me when I accepted that and decided that okay, I really do have abilities was in 2019. I was drawn to somebody's passing, basically. So this was before they knew the big old C word existed, COVID. I call it the C, basically, because, it's almost forbidden to say anywhere on public broadcast and stuff like that, unless you're the news channel. But anyways, that's another topic. I was drawn to a family member by marriage that was going to have basically the plug pulled on her. She had evidently a lung disease. She had been really sick, and she had a bunch of scar tissue on her lungs. And they said, evidently they've missed this, and she wasn't going to make it. So they were going to take her off the respirator. We're pretty sure it was COVID, because it was 3 months later is when they finally let out the cat out of the bag and said, hey, this is going around. But we didn't know then. But I had a premonition that nobody was going to be in the room with her. And she was basically like my grandmother too. So I already knew that none of her family was going to be in there with her except her daughter-in-law. And I was right. So I went there to be with her because I had this overwhelming need to be with that woman, to hold her hand and make sure that she could, be comfortable as she transitioned. And I didn't understand why. But I knew I had to be there. Lo and behold, I get there because they had set a time and a place for this. It's like a really sad story, actually, with kind of a happy ending, if you can look at it this way. But we were there when the time came for them to take her off the machine, and I held her hand, and I just did prayer. I prayed and for her, held her hands, and it was a very emotional moment. And all of a sudden, like in my mind's eye, everything flooded completely white. And I already had seen things when I closed my eyes and stuff like that. So it's nothing new. But this is when I knew something was, this was it. Everything flooded completely white because I was, asking him to come get her. Because I already knew that, we had family members meet us when we take our last breath, and before they're there with us all the time. I started seeing three beings in my mind's eye. I don't think I've ever told you about this, Emily, have I?
Nope.
Yeah. So there were three beings as I sat there and asked for, somebody to come in, help her transition. She fought for 45 minutes. So it wasn't extremely unpeaceful, but it was still kind of hard to be around that. And I noticed they come into my mind's eye. I went to a meditative state. I put my head on the side of the bed because we were in chairs and I was holding her hand. All of a sudden, her sister-in-law hollers out. She says, praise Jesus, and takes a big gasp. And when I opened my eyes, that same white light that I was seeing in my mind's eye had filled the room. And Rose looked right at me and said, did you see that? She's like, the whole room just lit up. I did not say a word to her. And that's when she took her last breath and her soul left her body. Because even though your heart don't stop for up to 8 minutes if you have a natural passing, and they say that, yeah, you're still alive in there, you just stop breathing. I disagree, because you can tell when somebody's soul leaves their body. She had come and she was taken, and the whole light that I was seeing in my mind's eye filled the room. And I knew then, I was like, what just happened? Did this really happen this way? Because like I said, it was extremely emotional, but that's when I knew. And then a blast from the past came back shortly after, when involving an entity I'd dealt with, because I still didn't know I was psychic when I dealt with all that stuff. But when that came back, I decided to take charge of my life and my family and protect my family, because I had kids. I had kids. And I wasn't about to let nothing nasty come in and mess with them. So I decided, well, I know I can see things. I know I hear things. I know things. It's time. I made that decision. And that was right in the end of 2019 and 2020. So that's how I knew that I was officially psychic, even though I already knew. That's when I accepted it. So I had been having visions for 10 or more years prior.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, like knowing and then accepting are two different things when it comes to this stuff,
Right.
for
And
sure.
that's probably the most defining moment, is I knew I was not normal. I knew I could do things, but I never accepted it until that moment. And yeah, it's been almost 3 years now. And whoa, what a change.
Yeah, it's about the same time for me too, like 2019.
Yeah. And that's the spiritual transition. So we could talk about this in probably another episode moving forward, but I will say it goes back to that whole astrological alignment with a lot of different planets that are actually throwing out the energy for people to be more awakened, more spiritually aware. So, I mean, a lot of people, and I'm saying this right now, people listening, you could, if you have any spiritual experiences or if you've noticed, you'll probably around the same time frame notice that happened to you too. If not, it's been happening over the last 3 years. Yeah. That's I mean, from the research I've done and everything. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yep.
Well, Emily, what was your
Okay.
defining moment?
Okay, so this story is kind of funny, kind of. So, I had just recently at this time, so it was like 2017, so recently in the beginning kind of the year or right before 2018. But anyway, so I had gotten a tablet for the first time to work on digital art because I wanted to work on that. But so I was doing that for hours, and this is when my room is in the basement, okay?
Yeah.
And I was with my ex. But anyway, so I'm doing it for hours, working on my digital drawing, learning how to do it. And then all of a sudden, I get this random like image vision thing of my dog Penny. You probably don't know who that is because she's my parents' dog. But she's a Shiba Inu and she's crazy. But
Oh.
anyway, Penny, I saw in this vision thing that she was carrying a knife in her mouth.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, there's no way. Like, I thought it was my imagination. Like, I don't know. I just thought there's no way that my puppy could have gotten a knife. So I thought. But then about a few minutes later, I hear my ex say, pretty much scream at the top of the stairs, Penny's got a knife from the table. Cause
What?
cause she, so what happens is when you eat dinner at the table, right? When you're not looking, if you leave the table, she will jump on the chair and sit like a person. And so we had just finished dinner and there was still silverware on the table. And so she jumped up on the table and grabbed a knife and she was running around with it because, they were chasing her to get it out of her mouth. When you when your dog gets something you don't want it to have, it knows it's going to run
Yeah.
away.
Oh, yeah.
So, it wasn't until they stopped chasing her that she dropped it and just started licking it. But after that, I wasn't fully convinced for whatever reason, right? So I did something very, very stupid.
Oh, Lord.
I took my best friend and we went to the Brinton Lodge ghost tour here in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to test it out. I just wanted to be like, okay, if I am psychic, then I should have no problem picking things up.
Boy, you ripped
And
the Band-Aid off.
I did.
Skin came with it, everything, just everything fell off as soon as you took the Band-Aid off.
The skin and everything. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And
That's, yeah.
so I picked up a lot of things and I was very surprised. And I picked up a lot of the feelings, of course. Um, but so I kept getting an image playing in my head of like this pregnant lady and her falling down the stairs, and I said it to my friend. And then would you know it, not even a few seconds, the guide doing the tour tells us the story of this pregnant lady almost falling down the stairs and this ghost force catching her and not letting her fall.
That's
So,
crazy.
mhm. But I during the tour I saw like outlines of people. I saw this really like definite like red angry outline of a man. And at that same time my friend was experiencing things on her end, and we were taking pictures and stuff, and we caught in front of her, it was like a white smoke in front of her. And she's like, someone's touching my face, someone's touching my face. And as she's saying that, I took the picture and there was white smoke right in front of her face. It
That's
was
crazy.
bananas. If I have those images, I need to show you. I don't know if I still have them though. I might. But
Yeah, that would be dope. We'd have to share them with
yeah.
you. I have a few myself, but I'd have to locate all of them.
But so like I was going through the tour, seeing things. Towards the middle, I see like this dark purple orb ghost child, and I'm like, that ain't no child. And then I say that to my friend because she's there as my validation person to make
Right.
sure I'm not cray cray. And she's like, okay. And then the tour guide's like, sometimes in this room, there's this little girl that can be seen. And I'm just like, yeah, it's not a little girl. It's trying to pretend that it is, but it's not. And then the tour guide starts talking about how she collects Ouija boards and how she's got dozens of them and they use them in the one room. And I'm like, uh oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And we get to this one part, and all I see, it looks like a force field kind of thing. But this room, it was like a force field, but there was a massive portal, and I can remember, I can actually see it again now. I'm seeing it in my mind's eye. And it almost looked like what's the best? Like chicken wire, you know how it's like thin and it's got like the wiry, but what I saw, it was like that, and it covered the entire room, but it was red and orange.
Wow.
Like, yeah. And then there was this massive mirror that was probably 12 feet tall and probably, I don't know, 7 to 8 feet wide. This thing was massive. And the first thing I heard was, that's a portal. And that was clear cognitively. I heard that, and
Okay.
that room felt terrible. And I'm like, bad things are in this room. And then the lady's like, oh, yeah, sometimes there's this really black figure, and this thing is like 7 feet tall, and it's huge, and it scares everybody, and it makes people leave. And I'm like, yeah. And I heard
It
that it came from one of the Ouija boards.
had
And I
to
heard,
have. Yeah, when you do all that stuff, it opens doorways and you continually do it. It's just letting more and more stuff in. It's the craziest thing ever. But anyway,
and,
sorry.
and she had dozens of Ouija boards, and they were just constantly using them.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that lady is still alive, to be honest.
Right. Right. Well, they need her to let the stuff come in. So
Yep, I was just gonna say that.
it's not
Yep.
funny, but it's kind of funny because you're doing it to yourself. I mean, I know everybody has their own differencing opinions about Ouija boards, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, for the most part, bad shit comes through them. You can take your
Mhm.
chances, like playing Russian roulette with a planchette. You know what I mean, go for it if you want to, but just know,
Russian roulette with a planchette. TM
yeah, I'm a
that
great
shit.
rapper, and I'm a,
TM trademark that.
yep. Don't nobody
um
use it, I swear.
Trademark that shit. We were gonna put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Because I was wide open and had no prior experience with knowing how to protect myself, yeah, bad things started to happen. And one thing I wanted to point out that I didn't do that I should have done, and I'm still mad at myself that I didn't do it, but at the same time I did not know. I did not cleanse myself before I left that location.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
was bad. That was so bad.
yeah. And not knowing, and any type of cleansing, whether it's energetic, sage, anything's going to help, or even have stones or whatever your method is to
I
cleanse
had
yourself.
stones, but I didn't do it right because they were not
Right.
charged and they were not cleansed.
That's understandable. That's crazy.
Hmm. But it was through those traumatizing experiences that I discovered my mission. And I needed to share my experiences and create a community of people just like me who experience psychic and astral attacks, and to come up with a solution. Thus, the fine art medium was born. Yeah, because of that and bringing all that shit home. Oh my God, that's when the astral attacks got crazy.
Oh, Emily. Oh, portals,
Hmm.
bedroom. And the first
Hmm.
thing you saw was a portal, and I saw the portals in your bedroom. Just saying, that just clicked.
Uh
Maybe
huh.
not. Maybe not.
Maybe.
Anyway, so that
But
was your scariest experience, or was
no,
that
that
your
my defining moment.
defining moment? Okay, I was just making sure we didn't merge those together.
Mm-mm. Oh
Oh,
no. Yeah, no. But yeah, it wasn't until I met you, Chastity, that I knew exactly what my abilities were because you helped me kind of figure out and navigate what they were and how to navigate and train them and practice and all that stuff.
Oh, hell
But
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, through your astrology understanding, because
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea, but I discovered my abilities of cognizance, clairvoyance, and clairaudience.
Yeah, and it's
And
it's totally a big difference. If you won't even notice them too sometimes if you don't like really
yeah,
think, you know what I'm saying? Like think about them individually. Sometimes this all runs together and you might not even know you have all those abilities.
and I didn't. I had no idea. I just knew I saw shit from time to time, and I have the ability to astral project and astral will travel around different realms, and I didn't understand like all of that was going on. I just thought
Right.
these are the experiences I am having and I don't know why.
It's tough, like learning for on your own. Like there's nobody. There are people that can kind of give you guidance, but there's nobody to
Mhm.
really like sit you down and say, "Hey,"
Yeah.
like we all nobody really has that, and
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons that we wanted to start this podcast. Is part of it.
Yeah.
Is part of the reasons to help people understand what's actually happening to them.
Mhm. Yeah, because I feel like the more you understand, the the more you can learn how to protect yourself and protect other people if that's how you want to go with it.
Right. And I can only speak from
Mhm.
experience. So, yeah, of course, I can read and regurgitate information, but the way that I
Yeah,
learn is through experience mostly. So,
same.
of course, I don't have all the defining answers, or nor do you, and I don't claim to, but I can tell you exactly what I experienced. I can tell you how it made me feel, and I can tell you what I've learned along the way, and that's the best I can do?
Yep,
So, but I'm sure it
exactly.
could be relatable to somebody. I know people out there have the same questions that we did a few
Mhm.
years back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, like I don't claim to know everything, but I can share my experiences and what I've learned from them. And maybe, sometimes people can apply those lessons into their own experiences and help them grow as well.
Exactly. All right, guys. So we have decided to break this up into 2 episodes. We've got some juicy
Mm,
details, including our scariest experiences, as well as why we do what we do now. So,
yes,
yes,
I
stay
like that.
tuned. We will be releasing both episode 1 and 2. So make sure you check out episode 2. It's literally already there. All you got to do is just
Mhm.
click on over. And please, if you are ever so kind enough to follow us, if you're on Apple, please give us a rating if you like, or maybe wait. I don't know. Totally up to you, but it would be super rad.
Thank you to all that took the time to listen to this week's episode. Your support means the world to us. And remember, all of us have the ability to shine brightly and shed positivity even in the darkest of places. One thing you can do to spread positivity is, for this week, you can tell a stranger a compliment. And remember, guys, stay safe, stay well, and light it up.
Love and light on a
Love and
lighter
light.
note. Love and light on a lighter note. Yes. We'll see you in the next episode, and peace.